Hey, Brittany, thank you so much for covering these first two block periods. I should be back by noon, so the end of that second one. If not, I've got a lunch duty, and it's middle school lunch, so lunch recess. It's pretty straightforward. 40 minutes. You go out, you check in with Miss Stewart or Coach Fanucci, and they'll help you out with that. Surprise. In other news, let me do a quick walkthrough. So far with fifth and sixth grade, I've introduced the new artist that we're working on, Maya Lin. We've talked about her life, the things that were going on while she was growing up. So like women's liberation was happening, continues to happen. Civil rights movement was happening. Basically, everyone's saying we want to be treated the same. We want the same choices. And then we also touched upon Vietnam because you can't talk about Maya without talking about the wall, the memorial wall, and you can't talk about the wall without talking about Vietnam. So we've given about with Vietnam. So we've given an intro to both. To walk us through, so expectations. You'll see expectations are on the for everybody. I'm gonna leave those out. They're laminated sheets. They get clipped right there above the chalkboard. Boom. Let me see. Quick safety for fifth grade. I think it's really important that we do a X-acto review because kids aren't listening necessarily. They're mucking it up. One, everybody needs a cutting mat, self-healing mat. Two, everybody needs an X-acto. With the X-acto, some trouble that some students are still having is remembering that this flat top is not the cutting blade, but the diagonal, the angled part is. If you, with the pencil grip, that's how we use it, with your pencil grip, when students are holding it like this and they're really frustrated, why is my paper tearing? Because they're not actually cutting it. So, just a quick review. Oh yeah, hold it like a pencil. When we're using it, very important, let me make sure you can see this, that we keep the blade straight. It's very tempting to, as you're cutting, angle the blade left or right. That is dangerous. That's when the blade flexes and the tip can fly off and hit somebody in the eye. Therefore, if we're using X-actos, our goggles are on. This video is for you to watch in advance, not for the students to watch in place of instruction. Thanks. And let me see other things to remember. If they're not using the blade, the cover, cork, whatever, goes on to keep us all safe. Goggles don't do us any good as headbands, right? Even if they get foggy, we'll clean them out, but we gotta wear them. Last week, we have the kids tell you about what we got done, what they remember about, actually, I did that, what they remember about Maya Lin. Last week, for these guys, I got them set up doing almost a tiered mountain type look. So other grades are doing something like this, where they take cardboard and they are mapping out the lowest level, using it as the template to make the second one bigger, using it as the next one to make the next one bigger, right? So you get a really cool look. With the fifth grade, we are using magazines with pages, which is kind of cool. So the idea here is you can get 2 or 3 levels or layers per magazine. You just have to plan it out in your sketchbook. So some of them have done this, others are going to need to. Possible everyone starts the magazine. Everyone starts the magazine in the same position. What I mean by that is the spine of our magazines. That's the thing that's on the table, or that's the thing that is ground. The earth is the spine. Some students were here, some students were here. Why is my book falling apart? Well, if you're cutting pages out this way, nothing to hold them in. End goal, see how far you can get. Really, I'm going to try to have enough magazines so kids can just keep working at it. Just to review let's see, this week, boom, 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 student work time, okay. End goal, see how far you can get. Oversized magazines, if they're not all the same size, kid can lay one down on top of the other, draw a Sharpie line. Oh, that's the edge of my magazine. I won't work past that. Hopefully, that makes sense. Otherwise, the technique itself, I'll just walk you through that because I realize that these guys have seen it and you haven't. And I believe the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Let's see, student work time for 25 minutes, great. Consolidate and combine, I think there's a nice way to just get kids up and moving so they've got their pieces and they know what those look like. And I'd like them to find a partner up, either a 2 or 3 depending on our numbers. Only if there's an odd number, one group of 3, please. Just seeing how their mountain range can combine with someone else's and on either edge, any of the edges, which is kind of cool. Actually, no, end to end. Sorry. Yeah, and when it comes to gluing, they're not going to glue their work together like Jacob and Brittany if we're both working on our own projects. Yes, maybe we'll get paired up because, oh, cool, our pieces flow together. But when it comes time to glue, we're not going to glue our pieces together. We will use them. We're just going to glue the things that we made individually, and we might still display them together later. Same thing happens when we move later down, where it's like, oh, and now add on to your partner's side. Again, any progress made there isn't going to be glued onto the partner's work. It's going to be kept separate, so it can still be installed to look that way, but at the end, the work can all go home with the right people. Hopefully that made some sense. All right, just the general walkthrough on the technique. Here we go. Yeah, this is going to be clutch. All right, so magazine. Spine's down here near me. I'm walking up to my mountain. If I'm walking up to the mountain, the first thing I'm going to see is, well, I'm not going to start at the tippy top. I start at the bottom, so I have to climb a little bit up first. I think something that some of our guys have been getting stuck on is cutting right down to the spine, and I just did it myself. So instead of making that line right down to the spine, I'm going to mark my way up the sides a little bit. These two marks here, so I'm not right at the spine. I'm up a little bit, and now I can create that line that I want to use and bring it down to the other one. Before I start cutting, I'm going to decide, am I doing 2 or 3 layers? For this demo, I'll do 2. So I'm going to find the general middle of that magazine. And here's where it gets exciting. I put the cutting mat right in between there. What that's allowing me to do is now, as I'm cutting, holding it like a pencil grip, blade straight, goggles on, I'm following that line. I'm going horizontal across from my body. I'm not pulling towards myself. If I had a neighbor, I'd be very careful where they were too. Boom. And I take that page off. It's very easy to get maybe 1 or maybe even 2 or 3 pages off at a go. And then we just keep going. And so it might be, to keep things interesting, thirds might be the way to go for some students. Mr. Stillman, this is taking too long. Or, hey, Miss Brittany, this is, I'm getting a little worn out. A-okay, especially at the very beginning. Well, you know what? Why don't you switch to 3? That way you'll have less pages to cut per step and more steps. I would like I think 3 is as much as we want to fit into any one magazine. 3 steps, 3 levels. And that's simply so that we can see. The cool part with the pages is that we get to see the amount of space it takes up. We get to see we get to see the space that is filled by these levels and see how thick they are. By being able to see how thick each level is, it really kind of helps sell the look. And yeah, so more than 3 probably won't work as well. So I cut down, and we're going to pretend. I cut down, and then I say, hey, check it out. I'm pretending that I've done all the way to the mat. But now I've got, there we go. Now I've got this level. I would probably do, if I was doing thirds, it would be at least a third of the magazine. But that way we can already start to get a sense of, harder to see here, but when we get more and more cut, that mountain builds up 2 or 3 levels per magazine, and then you move on to the next one to continue your range, to continue that mountain range. Oh, my cap is off my X-acto, so I will put on this. Boom. Collaborate as a pair. Best judgment, students can do it themselves, but the idea here is that it's not a crazy time. It's finding someone whose work blends into yours, right? Some of those are going to be smoother fits than others. Some of those we might have to get a bit more creative with the solution. The idea being that if I've worked on one or 2 magazines, I've got my 2 magazines, and they stay together like this, and I want to find someone who blends on one side or the other with me. Like I mentioned before, we're not gluing different people's work together. When we get to the glue stage, it's going to be me gluing mine together, them gluing theirs together, and then we can reassemble those ranges again. Glue, super straightforward. We're not going to go nuts with it. Just glue stick on the edges of the outermost page, that are attaching to the next one. Press and rub to really get that to hold, and hooray, that's going to be the class, really. The timelines are general. I do want to give the guys more work time than less work time, but I want to make sure if we can get as far as gluing, that's awesome. If call an audible if we need to. If it's like, hey, let's keep working, that's great. A-okay. I'm going to record a second. All right. Hey, 6th grade. Oh, no, fuck this noise.